أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Respected viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the previous discussion we were discussing the recommended ghusls, the ghusls that are recommended. After finishing up with the obligatory ghusls, we started discussing the recommended ones, and as I mentioned towards the end of the previous discussion that Ayatollah al-Uzma As-Sistani Hafadhahullah, he mentions 25 ghusls that are recommended in his book. And then after mentioning those 25 ghusls, what does he say? He says that the fuqaha, the scholars, the other maraji, the other mujtahideen, they have mentioned ghusls other than these 25 that I have mentioned. But those other than these 25 ghusls, their recommendation is not established according to my view. That's what he says, right? So it's good that someone performs those ghusls with the intention of raja. That means with the intention of hope. Alright? Depending upon the views of those jurists. But we will not be doing these ghusls with the intention of recommendation, with the intention of istihbab. That means, now let me give an example. For example, out of those 25 ghusls, the ghusl of 24th of Dhul Hijjah is not present. The ghusl for 24th of Dhul Hijjah is not amongst those 25 ghusls, right? So we will not, it's not permissible for us to do the ghusl of the 24th of Dhul Hijjah according to what? With the intention of istihbab, but we'll be doing it with the intention of raja if we follow, if we do the taqleed of Ayatollah As-Sistani, right? So why? Because it's istihbab, its recommendation, it has not been established according to the view of Ayatollah As-Sistani. Similarly, the ghusls that are present, the ghusls that are there for the ziyarah, for visiting the holy shrines of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, for visiting the holy shrines of A'imma alayhimus salam, if we want to visit the shrine in Najafi or in Karbala, alright, if you want to visit these shrines, there is a ghusl. Now this ghusl is not mustahab according to the view of Sayyid Sistani. According to his view, its recommendation has not been established. So if we want to visit the haram, the shrine in Najaf or in Karbala or in other places, Kadhimin, Samarra, Mashhad, then what should we do? We will be doing the ghusl, but with the intention of raja. Now what's the difference? What's the difference if we do it with the intention of raja or with the intention of istihbab? Alright? What is the difference between the two? The ghusl is a ghusl. He says yes. There is no difference. But the only difference is that if a ghusl is mustahab and someone does one of those ghusls that are mustahab, in this condition the person will not be needing any wudu for his prayers and for touching the verses of the Quran and other things, right? If someone does a ghusl that is mustahab, he will not be, after this, it's not necessary for the person to do wudu. But if someone is doing the ghusl that is not, that's a ghusl whose that's recommendation has not been established, in this condition, the person will need to take wudu after that ghusl as well. So this is the difference between those 25 ghusls and the other ghusls that he mentions. Now look at what he says in ruling 634. He says, in the course of explaining recommended ghusls, the other jurists, they have mentioned many other ghusls. And a few of them, they are the ghusls for each of the nights of the holy month of Ramadan. or the ghusl for the last 10 days of the holy month of Ramadan. They say all these 10 days it's mustahab for you to do the ghusl. Similarly, all the days of the holy month of Ramadan it's recommended for you to do the ghusls. They have mentioned. But what did Ayatollah Sistani mention? He said only the first night, the 17th, and then the 19th, 21st, 23rd, and 24th. These were the 6 nights. Alright, other than these, they were not mustahab. So if someone wants to do the ghusl on, for example, on the 15th of Ramadan, in this condition, it's permissible for him to do the ghusl with the intention of raja, but this ghusl will not be sufficient to make him enter his prayers. That means it's not permissible for the person to say his prayers with the same ghusl, but will be doing wudu as well. But if someone does the ghusl on the night of 17th of the holy month of Ramadan, that ghusl will be sufficient to enter into prayers. One can say his prayers with the same ghusl and no wudu is required. So this is the difference. Similarly, the ghusls of the ziyarah, he says the ghusls for the visitation, that is the ziyarah of the infallible ma'sumin alayhimus salam, from far or near. If someone wants to visit them, someone wants to do their ziyarah from his home, from here in India, or he wants to go there and then visit them, there is a ghusl. There is a ghusl, but this ghusl will not be sufficient to enter his prayers, to say his prayers, but he will be taking wudu. He says it is not established, however, that these ghusls are recommended, and some who wants to perform them must do with the intention of raja, that means with the intention of hope. Alright, so this is the mas'ala regarding the mustahab ghusls. And the last one was the same, that if someone performs one of the ghusls that has been legally established to be recommended as being a recommended ghusl, if someone performs any of those ghusls, like those we mentioned in the previous discussion, he says that he can perform the acts that require wudu with the same ghusl, and no wudu will be required. Alright, so if someone does the ghusl of Friday or any other ghusls that were recommended, any of those 25 types of ghusls that were discussed in the previous session, he will be liable to enter into his prayers, to say his prayers, or to touch the verses of the Quran or any other thing. So this is the difference, as I mentioned, between the ghusls whose recommendation has been established and the ghusls that are not established, alright, to be recommended. So this was all regarding the ghusls. So the ghusls in the beginning, when we started discussing the ghusls, what did we say? We said that the ghusl is the second type of spiritual purification. The first type was wuzu, the second type was ghusl, and then we said that the ghusl can be done in 2 ways. The first one was by washing the head and the neck, and then the right side and then the left one, and similarly by immersing one's body. So there are 2 ways of doing the ghusls. A few ghusls are obligatory and a few are recommended. The obligatory ghusls are like what? Like the ghusl for janaba. When the time for prayer enters, it becomes obligatory on us to do the ghusl for janaba. Right? And similarly the ghusl for the other 7 types of ghusls that we mentioned as being obligatory, that were wajib. And then we said that there are a few types of ghusls that are recommended, and we have discussed them in today's discussion. And now, moving on to the third type of purification, which is at-tayammum. So as I said, that there are 3 types of purifications. There are 3 types of spiritual purification, right? The first one is wudu, the second one is ghusl, and the third one is tayammum. We've discussed the first 2, And now, from now on, we'll be discussing the third one. And then, inshallah, we'll be entering into the book of prayers. We'll be discussing the laws of prayers. Okay. So, what is tayammum? Tayammum, its method will be discussed, probably not today, the coming days. Its method will be discussed. But when do we need to do tayammum? As all of us know, that tayammum is done by striking one's hand on the mud or the soil or a stone or pebbles, right? Or gypsum or limestone, any other thing on which we'll be mentioning them anyways. But when do we need to do tayammum? For example, I've got a bucket full of water, and am I allowed to do tayammum? They say that there are a few situations, there are a few conditions for a person being liable to do the tayammum. The first one is if the person doesn't have water. He doesn't have water. He tried to search for water, but he was not able to find it. And in the end, when he got hopeless, it's obligatory for the person to say his prayers. Now, how will he say his prayers? While the hadith, the narrations, they say, La salata illa bi tahur. There is no prayers except with purification. There should be a spiritual purification so that you be fit to say your prayers. So in the end, when he didn't find water, it's obligatory on the person to do the tayammum. So the first one is a person is not having water, will be doing the tayammum. The second one is the person is not having access to water. He has found water, but it's in a place that he won't be able to access it. Alright? Or there is water with someone, but the person is not giving it to us. So this is also a situation where it's obligatory on the person to do the tayammum. The third one is using water be harmful for a person. There is ample of water. I'm standing close to a river, but using water is harmful because for example, the climate is too cold, or because of some injury or any other thing, the use of water be harmful for the person. Or the fourth one is that it be really hard or it be of excessive difficulty. Alright? If procuring water be really hard, or there be excessive difficulty in doing this, and in this condition, it's not obligatory to go in search of water and to find it. But it will be obligatory on the person to do the tayammum. Alright? If there is excessive difficulty that could not normally be endured. In this condition, the person will be doing the tayammum, and searching for water or taking water out of that place will not be obligatory. Okay. The fifth one is there is water. There is water, but that water is required to quench one's thirst in a way that if I use that water to do the ghusl, or if I use that water to do the wudu, I will not be having any water to drink. In this condition also, it's obligatory to do the tayammum. Right? Similarly, if performing wudu or ghusl may lead to a shortage of time to perform my prayers. For example, I've got only 30 seconds, or I've got only 1 minute or 2 minutes to say my Asr prayers. Alright, I've not said my Asr prayers, and it's 4 rakat, right? And I've got only 2 minutes. Now if I go and fetch water and do my wudu, it will take around 2-3 minutes to do the wudu. For example, it will take 2-3 minutes. Now in this time, I won't be able to say my Asr prayers. Here, it's obligatory on the person to do the tayammum right there, find a place to do the tayammum, and then will say his prayers. Similarly, someone wakes up at 6 in the morning. Now, take the example that at 6, or after 2 minutes he will be, the sun will rise. Now here it's obligatory on the person to do the tayammum and say his prayers before the sun rises, or enter into his prayers before the sun rises. Even if he finishes 1 rak'ah before the rising of the sun, his prayers will be all right. So in these conditions, so if there is a shortage of time, or if the person having no water, or the water be harmful, or he's not having access to water, or the water is required to fulfill one's thirst, in these conditions it's not obligatory on the person to do the wudu or the ghusl, but it will be obligatory on the person to do the tayammum. So here are the laws of, here are the times, the places where it's required to do the tayammum in these conditions. And the way we have tayammum in place of wudu, similarly we have tayammum in place of ghusl. A person who is on whom it's obligatory to do the ghusl for janaba, if he has got no time, or if water is harmful, or he has no access to water, or any other thing, he can do the tayammum in place of ghusl. Similarly, a person waking up late in the morning and having only 1 minute to say his morning prayers will do the tayammum, will be doing the tayammum in place of wudu. So tayammum is also of two types: tayammum in place of ghusl and in place of wudu. These are the two types of tayammum. Okay, now moving on to the later part of our discussions, which was regarding the laws of the holy month of Ramadan. We said that there are a few things that are makruh on a person who is fasting. And we said that making the clothes that are on one's body wet, this is makruh. Now if someone is fasting and he's putting and he wets his clothes that he's wearing, this is what? This is makruh. This is disapproved. It's not recommended. Similarly, brushing one's teeth with a wet piece of wood, this is also makruh. And another one is putting water or any other fluid in one's mouth without any cause. There is no reason to do this, but the person is putting water inside his mouth and then taking it out, spitting it out. This is also makruh. And the last one is immersing the entire head into water. So if person immerses entire head in water, this is not haram, but it's makruh. It's permissible, but makruh. Haram is something that's not permissible, that's unlawful. Alright, but we have a few things that are lawful, but they are disapproved. They're not recommended. Like what? Like immersing one's head into water while the person is fasting. So a fasting person can immerse his head into water, but it's makruh. Alright, so this was these were a few things that were makruh on a person who is fasting. Okay, now if someone invalidates his fast of the holy month of Ramadan by the means of eating, drinking, or having sexual intercourse, or by masturbating, or by remaining in the state of janaba until the time of the morning prayers. If someone invalidates his fast by any of these 5 means, by eating, invalidates his fast by drinking, or by having sexual intercourse, or by masturbating, or by remaining in the state of janaba till the time of the morning prayers, if he invalidates his fast by any of these things, it's obligatory on the person to give the qada, to do the qada, and also the kafara will be obligatory on this person. If he does these things intentionally and he deliberately did these things, it will be obligatory on the person to do the qada and also to give the kafara. Right? Kafara will also become obligatory on this person. But if someone makes his invalidates his fast by any other means, all right, by any other means, he will be only giving the qada. He will only be doing the qada. No kafara is required. He says, and as for someone who invalidates a fast by means other than those that I mentioned, other than those 5 things: eating, drinking, having sexual intercourse, masturbating, and remaining in the state of janaba. If someone invalidates his fast by any other than these 5 things, will be observing qada only. He says the recommended precaution is that he gives the kafara as well. Recommended precaution meaning it's not obligatory to give the kafara. But if someone, now for example, if someone attributes something false to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or to the Prophet, to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, or to one of the Imams alayhimus salam, if he attributes a false narration to one of these personalities, he will be observing qada. If he doesn't eat anything, he will not be allowed to eat anything. He will observe the qada, right? And no kafara is required. Similarly, if someone intentionally vomits, all right, puts his finger into his throat and then vomits, if he does that intentionally, vomiting done intentionally will make the person liable to do the qada, but kafara will not be obligatory on the person. 2. 3. If someone is applying liquid enema, here also the fast will be invalidated, and the person will be observing the qada only, and he will not be required to give the kafara. I hope the mas'ala is clear. But if someone invalidates his fast by the means of any of those 5 things that I mentioned: eating, drinking, having sexual intercourse, masturbating, or remaining in the state of janaba, if he does by any of these 5 things, it will be obligatory on the person to give the kafara, as well as to do the qada. Okay. Now, how much is the kafara? The kafara that should be paid, that should be given, how much is it? He says, if someone invalidates his fast, he breaks his fast intentionally in the holy month of Ramadan, it's obligatory on the person to do one of these 3 things. The first one is either he must free a slave, عتق رقبة, it means to free a slave, or he must fast for 2 months with the instructions that will be mentioned right now, or probably in the next discussion. Either he must free a slave, or must fast for 2 months, or should feed 60 poor people. One of these 3 things will be obligatory on the person. Now, in these times, we do not have slaves to free them, right? So it will be obligatory on the person to do any of these 2 things. The first one is either he fasts for 60 days, fasts for 2 months, or what does he do? Or he needs to feed 60 poor people, 60 fuqara. For each fast, if he breaks once, he will do this. If he breaks 2 fasts, he will need to fast for 4 months, 2 and 2, or need to feed 120 people, 60 and 60. So this is the kafara for each fast that a person breaks intentionally. Now the other laws regarding kafara will be discussed in the next discussion. هذا وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.